Afternoon, everybody. My name is Helene Krause. I'm just going to do some introductions and thank our team for coming together to give this presentation. We just gave it a minute or two to allow everyone to join, but we're going to start now. So if you're wondering how to put your abstract together, you're in the right place today. If you're not in academia, it can be a little bit daunting to put together an abstract for the first time. So we're here to help you, and we're hoping to condense the talk into an hour so that there's sufficient time for you guys to ask questions so that we can help you with that. So we've got three presenters today. And they actually don't need introduction because they are so well known and well loved. We've got Gwen Gosney, the past president of LaRSSA, who's going to talk to us about how to respond to the theme and the sub-themes of our conference. And then she'll be followed by Anja van Deventer, who we all also know very well. Anja is currently serving as a director of LaRSSA, and she also serves on UNISA's postgraduate research committee. She's passionate about sustainable restoration research. And then thirdly, we'll end off with Mariki Reineke. And I'm sure if you've ever attended any of Mariki's presentations, you'll remember her. She's quite a memorable presenter. So she's going to help us to understand what are the key things to keep or to consider when you are putting together your presentation so that you can put something together that's memorable and punchy. Yeah, and when we're done, Gwen will close for us, and we are happy to take questions. If you have questions, you can drop them in the Q&A box so long, and then we'll address them at the end. But we're looking for a lively discussion about in taking your questions so that we can help you to put together strong abstracts. Thank you. I'm going to hand over to Gwen now.
Right, good afternoon. Welcome, everybody. Teresa, if I can ask you just to put us on the next slide, please, that would be great. Okay, great. I'm just finding my camera. There we go. Thank you so much, Helene, for opening up for us. Over the last few years at LaRSSA, I'm a bit of a LaRSSA conference junkie. I've been going to them for very many years, since I guess the first presentation was probably way back when LaRSSA started. And I've always found LaRSSA to have a very high standard of presentations, very high standard of studies presented. But over the years, it's become apparent that it's really a wonderful ground for people, particularly who are new to presenting, to come and cut their teeth at conference. And as much as we welcome that, it's always nice to have a really engaging and high standard of conference. So we thought, you know what, this is an opportunity for us just to share with people. Some of the most experienced presenters have always got something to learn. I mean, yeah, everybody needs a coach. So whilst this session is aimed at sort of the beginner and intermediate, I'm sure there are points that a lot of our seasoned presenters and abstract writers can help us with. I see a couple of faces and names in the room that I recognize, Prof. Anja and Kulani. Thank you so much for coming and joining us, even though you guys are serious academics. I'm sure you're going to teach us a thing or two. So I'd really like you to engage with us during the Q&A session as well. So I'm going to be dealing with responding to the conference themes. And I think, if I just look at the pictures on the scenes, this is the venue that we're going to be going to next year. This year, not next year. This is the Dinner King, where we're going to be joining. It's a lovely conference venue. And Wayne, who started and got this all going, presented a similar presentation for us last year. So we've kind of taken what he's done and we've added to it. We've changed it a bit. And we're hoping that you'll enjoy the experience with us. Next slide, please, Teresa. So what do we mean when we say responding to a conference theme? Now, this year, we've got a very specific theme for the LaRSSA conference, but each year and every conference that you go to as a learning experience has always got a key theme. But what's important within the LaRSSA family and within most of the specialist organizations involved in the sustainability and environmental field is that you bring your own experience, your real life experience. And if I have a look at the pictures on screen, you'll note that these are not all academics. These are practitioners. These are people with PhD and looking through the looking glass at a very narrow area of study, but it's also people with a very wide worldview. We've got guys who are really involved in implementation on the ground, but also those that are a little bit far away, sitting and looking at the academic or electronic side of things. So it's really about bringing your personal experiences and your life experiences as well as your academic experiences into the room. If you are a practitioner, do not feel intimidated. We've had some of the best presentations at our conferences over the years presented by farmers, presented by students. Be careful, if you do a really good presentation, what happens? We invite you to join council. Um, and that's not actually a prerequisite, but you know, Shumela was our young professional in training, and she was nominated to the position after a particularly memorable presentation at conference. It just brings your personality into the room, and it allows us to see what your contribution is to the very broad field of land rehabilitation. Okay, if we can have a look at the next slide, please. Right, pragmatic and integrative land rehabilitation is our primary theme for this year's conference. And what we did in compiling the theme is we had a look at all the recommendations from the last year, last 2 or 3 years really, and seeing what is it that the people in the room wanted to see more of, what did they want to hear more of. But one of the resounding things that came through over the years is that we have to be practical. So pragmatic being the applied side of land rehabilitation. It's important for us to do the academics, to do the real true science, but it's also important for us to bring it back to what does that mean for implementation. We live in a day and an age where it's very important when we're investing our time and energy to make sure that there's a return on that investment. Anyone from a seasoned professional, some of our old honorary members who have spent their lives in the field, as well as our students, come together in one space. And we're having a discussion about the so what of land rehabilitation. We've all got our own areas of expertise, and we come together to learn as practitioners. We've got a huge number of our LaRSSA members who are actually consultants who write reports and they get left on the shelf and they never see what it looks like in practice. We've got a lot of practitioners who are getting their boots dirty on the ground, and they need to come back and actually tell the story of how those case studies unfolded, how those recommendations did when it came down to the nuts and bolts of implementation on the ground. So it really is about building the bridge between the academic world, the theoretical world, the practical world, and answering the so what questions in the room, helping us identify areas for improvement, opportunities for risk, and sharing information. We've got a lot of mines or development agencies sitting in the room, and it's also to say to them, guys, when you are scoping the work that we would like to bid for, that you would like to appoint us to do, we'd like to, number one, show you what we can do, but we'd like to see what your needs are, to understand what your expectations are. So that's why we say this needs to be pragmatic, applied, a real logical application of our understanding and our experiences that we want to share. When we talk about integrative, you can see that this land rehabilitation community or fraternity is very diverse. Aside from the various types of role players that we've got that I had on the screen earlier, we can just see that there are very many working parts to this. LaRSSA and its origins were very, very much ingrained in the mining industry at one stage. But when LaRSSA started out, there were 3 specific areas. We had a look at agriculture or food production. We had a look at mining and mining-related impacts that require rehabilitation. And then we actually had a look at biodiversity as well. So those are our 3 areas of expertise that we're looking to bring lessons into the room. We've got lots of interesting lessons over the years, and the most important one that came out strongest that we've encapsulated in this theme or captured in the theme is that one cannot exist without the other. There are a lot of things around biodiversity and ecological infrastructure that are directly applicable to rehabilitation of mine sites or the application of conservation agriculture or the way in which we manage our rangelands and our grazing. So there's no silo to say, well, this is mining only and that is biodiversity only. Soil, water, air, we need to integrate them and understand the workings of these across the different sectors. Every conference has got the main theme, and quite often they break up into sub-themes, and it's very important to try and identify yourself and the story you want to tell in the sub-theme. This was a bit tricky for us this year because it was so diverse. Teresa, if we can move to the next slide, please. And we realized that we really had a box of Smarties on our hands, a real integrated mix of what people wanted to see, where we felt there were areas for development. And it really does stretch. At the bottom over here in the bottom left corner, I think I can show you, there we go. Here we have governance, policy, and regulation. Obviously talking about the enabling environment created by policy and how it really does dictate, particularly in the mining area through the MPRDA, those requirements that have driven things like financial provisioning over the years. Where do we stand now? How is that affecting other forms of rehabilitation? And what kind of policy and regulatory environments and changes are happening that we need to talk about as a fraternity? There's always climate change and the impacts of land rehabilitation. In our planning, how do we account for climate change? In our projects, I always say the only thing that the incidents we get are often ascribed to unusual or unexpected rainfall. Well, these days you can't say that anymore. We have to plan for the unexpected. We have to plan for the extreme. So how do we do that in a rehabilitation situation? Or what impacts have you had that you've had to learn from? Restoration, remediation, rehabilitation, those are all the R's of rehabilitation. And as LaRSSA, we're having very interesting discussions with Nicola around the remediation of contaminated soils. We're working with SER around restoration and the targets for restoration. And we really are, what we want to say, it's kind of the missing middle between the highly contaminated, polluted spill and this pristine biodiversity or recreated biodiversity. Where is this rehabilitation coming in? So I think that is very important that we have a look at that. Collaboration is always a key thing. It's something that was shown on the previous picture. You cannot do this on your own. How do we collaborate, not just between the owners or the drivers of disturbance and the professionals required to rehabilitate, but what about the communities and the people who use the land once the disturbance has been addressed? The engineering and the landform design, anyone who's in the rehabilitation field knows the importance of this. And I think if we have to look at lessons learned and some of our biggest closure and rehabilitation challenges is where this interdisciplinary collaboration and the engagement of the engineers and the designers was not well managed. Innovative approaches and technologies is always very interesting to have a look at, but also how do we get the most out of these going forward? How do we adapt? Innovation can't stay on the edges. We've got to be able to mainstream some of those best products and lessons into what we do. Then monitoring, evaluation, and risk management are always very important. Any project has risks, and any land rehabilitation process is an active risk management process. So what have we learned along the way, and what have we got to share? Now, when I started looking at this box of Smarties, I got a little bit overwhelmed. I also had the privilege of being involved in the development of the conference program. So if we can move to the next slide, please, Teresa. The conference program is what informed the next few slides, and I just want to break it down for you because if you've clicked on the link to the conference program and you're finding it to be a little bit, for lack of a better word, maybe a little bit wacky and unclear, I just want to show you how we've put together the program for this year. First, we're going to have a bit of a dive into the value of integrative and pragmatic land rehabilitation, looking at the different R's and how they all contribute to the rehabilitation process at the end of the day. Essential elements of integration. We would love your abstracts and your submissions on what it takes to get integration right. There are many requirements to integrate, but what is the secret to making it work? I work in an environment where there are lots of joint ventures and forced partnerships between different companies that have to work together. And integration and collaboration over there is obviously sometimes a very, very big risk for us. So that is something that I would really love to get some abstracts on in terms of integration. Engaging the unusual suspects. Dansile, if there's anyone from Sanbi in the room who knows Dansile, she's tasked with engaging all the unusual suspects. And I had the privilege of going on a learning exchange with her, taking traditional leaders into the the southern parts of KZN and the northern Eastern Cape, having a look at land rehabilitation practices and land use management practices there. So I'm hoping to submit an abstract where I will show some of the unusual suspects involved in the rehabilitation game. But please bring your suspects and come and show me who else you're working with. Owning our responsibility and growing our partnerships. Quite often, rehabilitation is seen as a grudge purchase or something that you just quickly do at the end. But it's really about making sure that we understand the role of every part of environmental management or our industrial processes and our mining operations that really impacts on land rehabilitation at the end of the day. If you're in the mining industry, you must know that your mine manager is one of your greatest stakeholders in terms of making sure that rehabilitation is appreciated and understood within the business. So who are the people in the room? And there's a lot of mining houses that are going to be present at this year's event. So really understand who's in the room and who the partners are that you could possibly speak to if you're submitting an abstract. Thanks, Teresa. The tried and trusted versus innovation. Sometimes it's easier just to use what's already in the box. If there are some tried and trusted techniques or methodologies that you use that you've managed to innovate or improve on over the years that you really just want to remind us of, good old-fashioned swirl classification is not going to change much at the moment. Maybe it is. Maybe I've got something to learn there. Come and tell me. What are our out-of-the-box rehabilitation practices that you can use as they are to really make a difference? Sometimes it's the most underestimated things that we just need to be reminded of with a presentation on the value of simple processes that have been in existence for a long time. Out-of-the-box innovation to enhance rehabilitation practices is the other one. We were going to say, yeah, take that old box, let's reinvent it and let's come up with something new. We want multifunctional, transdisciplinary approaches so that we can be future fit. The careers that people are engaging in now, the areas of specialization did not exist when I was choosing my fields of study. And despite the gray hair, that's not that long ago. So really, how do we get our ducks in a row? What have we got in our toolkit that allows us to not just make the most of what we've learned to date, but really innovate and prepare ourselves for the future of land rehabilitation? Yes, please. Next slide, thanks. Right, the last part of the program that I think is really maybe it's the second last one. Let's just see. Yeah, the last part of the program that I really want to speak to today is about the lengths and the depths that we go to. Whether you're a practitioner or an academic doing trials and really trying to get your head around those stats, it's very important that you share the lengths and the depths that you go to. None of the people in the rehabilitation field have ever been able to say to me that their job is easy, that their practice is simple. It takes dynamic people to come and have a look and see what are the main rehabilitation areas that are taking place in the field and how do we collectively use them for a sustainable future. We look at mining and land rehabilitation related to mining and other industrial disturbances. There's the food and water security, which is a major issue in our country, specifically with degraded landscapes on which multiple people are trying to live. How do we harness ecological infrastructure and biodiversity? Whether it's ecological infrastructure that we have to recreate through the rehabilitation of wetland systems, maybe those wetland designs that you've been doing are to treat acid mine drainage. Come and tell us the story. Come and tell us how we're doing these things. If we've got mining closure and pollution management, therein comes the AMD story, but there are lots of things that are happening. We want to know what your landscape is that you're working in and what your solutions and challenges are that you're dealing with. So at the end of the day, for me, it's really important that when you think about the conference topics and themes and you have a look at that program, that you don't put yourself in a box. Have a look, have a glass of wine, have a creative think about how you can interpret and present your work, your lessons learned. For me, some of the most interesting lessons learned come from the most unlikely sources. The most awkward of initial presenters are sometimes the people who give us the best food for thought. The other side of the coin, obviously, is that sometimes the questions we can't answer make the best presentations. Quite often, we've got established or old practices or insecurities in industry, and we've got lots of people who haven't yet moved through into this age of sharing information. If you've got clients that are not happy for you to share project or site-specific data and put their names out there, associated with good or bad practice, let's work around it. Have a look at what you can take from the information that you have at your disposal. Nothing needs to be branded. Nothing needs to be specifically located. If it's a valuable lesson, it's something that's going to contribute to improving practice in the land rehabilitation space, let's bring the lesson and come and talk about the lesson itself. If you've got something you're struggling with, bring the question and let's have a debate. We're looking for diversity in our program. We're doing our best to make it as integrative as possible. So it doesn't matter if you're a farmer, a teacher, an academic, a practitioner, or a client. Just bring your experience and come and chat to us, please. Right. If there are any direct questions right now, I'm sure we can have a quick question section, just in case there's one or two before anyone wants to move on. Otherwise, I'm going to ask Anya to take over for us, please.
Hello. Thank you for the time and the great explanation of the theme. So Gwen, you really did a bit of the footwork here. So today I have the privilege to share a combined tutorial, that I will call it, on how to write an abstract and submit it for consideration for a conference. First of all, I need to thank Prof. Wayne Tritter for sharing his previous presentation so that we can use the building blocks, that is the building blocks for writing an abstract in this talk. So I'm jumping into do's and don'ts of abstract writing for a conference themed pragmatic and integrative land rehabilitation. Next slide, please. So you've done a thing. It's beautiful. It is elegant. It will make the world better, and you want to share it with everybody. Where do you start? You start with knowing the theme. And here we're talking about pragmatic, practical, systematic, repeatable, and integrative, inclusive, cross-pollinating, holistic land rehabilitation. As a side note, please know the difference between rehabilitation, remediation, and restoration, because some of our more seasoned presenters and practitioners will have a field day if you use the themes interchangeable. So understanding the nature of your contribution to this theme is very, very important. First of all, is it scientific or is it a case study? If your abstract is scientific, it should include something on the experimental layout, statistical analysis, and it must be written in the third person for the language fitting for the scientific royalty you are. So, if your contribution is a case study, you have to include an example, data observation. But here you can write it in the first person or the third person. So you can choose to be the hero or royalty, just as you please. When you understand your contribution to the theme, make your contribution clear. My test, my litmus test, to make sure that my contribution and abstract is clear is to read it to my mom and see if she understands. Next slide, please, Teresa. So this piece of literature creative genius from you needs to have a story. You need to tell the story from cradle to grave, hypothesis to conclusion. Use professional language. Please keep with the 350 words. And I know we don't like AI to do our job, but if you are a bit over, just ask AI to write it a bit shorter for you. It is the easier way. And because it's pragmatic, make sure your abstract not just answer technical questions, but look at socioeconomic, environmental factors as well, and real world impacts. So this wonderful, beautiful brainchild of yours may have a chance to shine on the stage. Next slide, please. Okay, things that will get your abstract rejected by the abstract bouncers will be if you only write about your research methodology. We had a few students in the past that was only starting out their studies, and we had a whole presentation on methods and methodology, which didn't add to the implementation part of our theme. Because you just wrote about research methodology, your abstract bouncers will sit and look at it and say, so what? What? Why? If your abstract does not show relevance to the theme, it won't be considered. And we do ask that when you present something as a company, as a person of interest, don't use this platform as an advertising platform. And then also remember, like Gwen said, not everybody who's attending LaRSSA is an academic. And make sure that your audience is also addressed in a more general but professional way. Again, think about your mom and if she would understand what you just wrote there. So, next slide, please, Teresa. How should this literary work of art of yours look? Well, Google has got a great example, and Gwen has shared this nice image with us. You start with the context, and you have to tell the people, the audience, the evaluators of your abstract, in 2 sentences, what your talk is about. Then you move to the purpose, and you must tell why the audience should care and why did you care. You have to now, in the next step, elegantly indicate how your methods, how you got your intel, how your methods was constructed to get the relevant information without using any references in an abstract. And then your discovery. Ta-da! Findings on this, but in a very short way as well. So the rule of thumb is try to do not more than 2 sentences per subheading. And then significance. How is this wonderful, elegant thing that you have created going to change the world? Okay, next slide. I'm going to close with the reasons for rejection because we always want to know why. The abstract was irrelevant to the theme. You didn't follow the recipe of the previous slide, so there was no clear context or purpose, or methodologies was a bit not there. you didn't have any findings because you only started your study, or you didn't state what the significance will be to the greater theme. You just recycled an old abstract from a previous conference and didn't adjust it to the audience, or your research story didn't flow and it was a bit glitchy, which will make the presentation bouncers reject your abstract. I will now hand over the presentation to presentation royalty, Mariki, the hero of the next 10 to 15 minutes, queen of presentations, great mentor. Thank you.
Oh, shucks. You make me blush, Anya. Thank you very much. Thank you for this opportunity to share some of my personal learnings with you. I actually don't know why, because I've only been presenting at LaRSSA for the past 2 years, and now I'm dubbed Queen of Presentations. I don't know why, but let's go through some of my personal learnings of how you can tailor make your presentation to create an engaged audience. And that is what we want, an engaged audience. Next slide, please. For my talk, I'm going to focus on the top 5 common mistakes that we usually see during presentations or have made them ourselves. Then I'm going to give you a little bit of a tip, some helpful hints on how to overcome those mistakes. And then we're going to recap on the outcomes of your presentation and what to look for. You next. Right, so let's start with our top 5 common mistakes. And leading the race is overloading slides with text. I doubt if there is anything more frustrating for an audience member than having to read a whole bunch of text on a slide. So there I gave an example of what such a slide would look like. It's just rows and rows of endless text without any rhyme or reason. And why is this so frustrating? Well, if you're an audience member, you want to make sense of the slide. But you can do only one of two things. You can either listen to the presenter or you can read the text. And because we are presenting, we preferably want to have people listen to us when we speak. So don't overwhelm your audience and distract them from what it is that you are saying. In our tips, we will look at how to address this problem. Next slide. Number 2 is poor visual design. With newbies, we find that people would like to make a visually pleasing presentation, and they use a lot of colors and a lot of design elements, a lot of different text and colors and sizes. But actually, if we do that, it deters or take away the professionalism of our presentation. And it's hard to follow. So this is an example of a really bad way of displaying your text with colors that are clashing. Red and yellow don't go together. You can wear the yellow Crocs with the red Speedo on the beach, but not in a presentation, please. And having text that is that doesn't show on your background is even worse. And if it's too small, the pitch, nobody can read it and people don't follow along. It's also confusing. And using images of low quality rather than don't insert any images if you can't have good resolution images. Next one. A lack of structure. This also fits into what Anya has just presented. We need to have a story. Your presentation is a story from the beginning to the end. It must have a clear flow. If we don't have that, the audience is left confused and disengaged. And because they are trying to figure out what it is that you actually want to tell them, they are not listening to the message and they don't get the grounding key messages that you want to convey. Next. Number 4, reading directly from slides. Mistake. Reading slides word for word during the presentation. Why it's a problem? It disengages the audience and reduces your credibility. Point made. People want to know that you can engage with them, that you can speak freely, and you don't have to read from your slides. Next, please. And lastly, but definitely not in that order, don't ignore your audience. Like with your abstract, you need to tailor-make your presentation to the conference that you are addressing, the people in front of you, and the topic that you are presenting. Firstly, you have to address the tone of your presentation, whether it's a scientific paper that you are presenting or something more informative like the presentations I usually do. It's not very scientific, but people enjoy them. So it is informative. Then the context. What will help to bring your message clearer to your audience? Is it data tables? Is it graphs to help to show your methodology or your findings? Or is it just text and infographics? Those will determine what needs to be in your presentation. And the last one, the interaction with your audience. When you step onto that podium for the first time and you look at 50 to 100 faces staring back at you blindly, you have a split decision to decide. How are you going to address the crowd? Will you use an icebreaker to break the tension a bit? Or are you going right in the presentation, stay professional and deliver your message? You have a split second to decide, and that will set the tone for the rest of your presentation. It's also important to know whether there's going to be a Q&A session or you're going to address questions during your presentation. And then eye contact. Something that I found very useful is look for 2, 3 people that you know in the audience. Make sure that they are not sitting together in one group, so that when you are presenting, you look for their faces in the audience and speak to them specifically. In doing that, it gives the impression to the rest of the audience that you're actually paying attention to them. Aha, meanwhile, but it works. Next, please. So, some additional tips. How do we improve our presentations? You can see where that guy failed, the photo that I used. You can see the rows and rows of text. Not good. All right, next slide. Thank you, Teresa. Right. We start with the basics. We start with the visual design. So how can we get started? Templates. If you work for a company like WSP or any other institution like university, they usually have an already set up template. To use the template helps you to be consistent in the fonts that's used, the size of the text, and the color schemes. They usually set up, not always, to be complementary. And if you use a template, you can't go wrong. If you don't have an organizational template, there are lots and lots of good templates available if you just Google for them. Secondly, avoid overusing graphics. I know it is a visual pleasing way to deliver your message, but there's always too much, to feel too many pictures. Use only when it supports the message that you want to bring across. And then lastly, use the power of 3. Now, what is this? The power of 3 is actually very simple. Some university studies have shown that people can only focus on 3 things simultaneously. So whenever you have an open slide on your presentation, try to limit whatever you have there to 3. So 3 paragraphs, 3 sentences, 3 pictures, 3 key elements on your infographic. That's not always possible. Sometimes you want to convey more information than that. Then you see how you can split the message or the points into 2 slides. But the power of 3 is very powerful. Next, please. Structure. The basic layout of any presentation will have these 4 elements. You start with an engaging, eye-catching title slide. If you are busy with a study or some field work and you have a nice resolution photo that shows your results, this is the best place to place that photo to focus the attention on what is it that you want to convey. This is also the slide where you will introduce yourself if people don't know you. Next is your content slide or agenda. I usually don't use the word agenda because people will say, yeah, what is your hidden agenda? So I use the word contents, but that is what it is. You list what it is that you are going to present, your main themes of your talk. Thirdly, it's important that you use section dividers so that your audience can see when you're done with one key message and move over to the next. And fourthly, the recap. It's important, especially if you want to leave the audience with some vital information or messages. Next slide. Reduce the words. Remember the problem number 1 that I showed you, the rows and rows of text that doesn't make sense. How do we overcome that challenge? Well, the easiest one is to use bullets. So break it up into digestible sentences. Keep your text concise. In a presentation, you do not have to use sentences like you would in an abstract or a normal document or even email that you would write. You don't have to use all the words, just use keywords. Also, if you can't go for the power of 3, a maximum of 6 lines per slide, and use infographics to show the relationships and processes. Like the example that I used here on the right-hand side, we all know reduce, reuse, recycle. Those are keywords, it's visually pleasing, it's short, it's punchy, and you can use that as your talking points. That also assists you in that feeling that we all get that we have to read from the slide. So if there isn't any words to read, you can't read them. So rather use keywords like this, and that will help you to have a professional and well-written presentation. Right? So let's recap. What did we learn? Next slide. Visuals matter. Use a template. Don't go making your own up. It's more difficult than it sounds. Stick to a template. Google is your friend. Make sure that whatever you read is legible. Make sure it's big enough. Don't go below a pitch of 14. Even 14 is a bit dicey. 12, you definitely can't read if you're sitting in the back of the class. So work between a pitch of 20 and 14. And be consistent. Whatever you do, the fonts, the colors, the styles on every slide must be repeatable. Secondly, don't confuse the audience. Provide structure. Use less words and talk more. Use bullets and numbers and infographics. And the last one, why are you presenting? You have to know your audience. Like Anya said, know who you are presenting to. It's not all science people. It's not all academics. It's not all contractors. know your topic, read the room, don't read the slides, and engage with your audience. Thank you. That is my message. Any questions?
Thank you so much, Mariki. Anya
Thank
as
you.
well. I really appreciate it. Guys, yeah, thank you. I see there are a couple of people clapping hands, and I really want to congratulate you guys on making it interesting to listen to. While you were going through this, Mariki, I was checking our own slides to make sure that we've also done the right thing in terms of practicing what we preach. Sometimes it's more difficult than you think. It's not always easy. Now, Mariki made a point earlier. She says she doesn't know why she's the queen of presentations because she's only presented at LaRSSA twice. But I can tell you that people like Mariki, and specifically Mariki, my first vivid memory of Mariki is from 2016 at the LaRSSA Conference. And I think she's probably been to almost everyone since. But it took her a while to find her voice and to bring her experience into the room. And it was in talking to her individually one day, and I said to her, please, I really want you to come and share your knowledge and your depth and your insight with us, because we have a lot to learn from everybody, specifically people like Mariki who've got good experience. But that's not the only people who come to LaRSSA. It might take us a bit of time to find our voices, but I want you to please feel free, whichever conference you're going to, whether you are attending LaRSSA or any other conference, to engage with the people that are there. This is an opportunity that a lot of people pay for. The networking value of coming to a conference is massive. The networks that you build personally and professionally will inform and guide your life for many years to come. So use this opportunity to network. When Anya was chatting, I suddenly felt a little bit nervous and intimidated with all the don'ts and the make sure you know the difference between the R's and all these things. And that made me just have a little giggle, because I know how I felt when I first started coming to conferences. I was very unsure of myself. And later as well, when I was doing my master's and having to present my work, having to write the abstracts and present the findings, one is sometimes a little bit unsure of yourself in the beginning. But whether that's the case or whether you're a seasoned professional who still gets nervous, because it's the natural thing to do sometimes, take the time to know that nobody else knows what went into your planning and preparation. And if you truly do know and understand your subject matter, what you have to say is almost, if not more valuable than what you're actually showing on the slides. So people don't know what's on the piece of paper that you're nervously clutching. If you are nervous, bring your context, bring your understanding, but speak from the heart. It really is important. There are many, many, many things that one can do to make it more interesting, but I love showing photographs. Over here, you'll see some photographs from one of our recent LaRSSA activities, and I just want to highlight here that there is so much collaboration. There's so much to learn. We've got the innovation technology. We've got the field visits. And then this other picture here with the two gentlemen with the bright safety vests standing in the middle of the long grass. This is on top of some particularly fantastic mine rehabilitation that we visited earlier this year. And here we have a student who joined the LaRSSA family. I don't know if Muti, are you on the call? A little while ago. They hosted us in Namibia on our tech tour. And here he got the opportunity to closely interact with Prof. Kellner, who is one of his let's call it academic heroes or rehabilitation heroes. So from the kind of engagements that you're going to be having with LaRSSA, whether it is at our conferences or at our events, we really want you to network and bring your ideas, bring your questions. Come and share with us what you're thinking. We're going to have a bit of Q&A. I'd like to sort of instigate that we get some content from the floor. And maybe if there are people in the room who are seasoned presenters, if you could please, sorry, Teresa, if we can have the presentation back, if you could please also offer us your insights. Sue, I know that AIA SA offer amazing conferences, and you guys have literally hundreds of presenters and presentations coming through. So if there's any gems or advice you'd like to offer from your side, please do share with us on this platform. Teresa, if it's possible, if we can get the presentation back, I just want to highlight those last few dates. Yeah, I'm going to wait for a couple of hands to go up. If there are any, I'll just mention them. But then I want you to please just look at this. When you're submitting your abstract, and it goes back to what Anya was saying about don't present something that's not presentation ready. This does not mean to say that you can't come and share your questions and your current research with us. Posters are a really nice way to bring your current research. If you've just got through the methodology and you're starting to do your field trials, if you want to put that information onto a poster and come and show what you're doing, if we get a nice number of posters at the conference, we'll be able to facilitate a poster presentation session or a poster engagement session where people come around and they're free to Q&A. Have a bit of a discussion with you on your research design, particularly if you're in the process of doing that and you want some advice. Put the questions out there and come and engage with the professionals that are in the room who want to know more about what's happening in emergent studies. Posters are also one of the first ways that I started presenting at LaRSSA. It was 2016, and I presented my work on environmental impact assessments and environmental management plans. And I wrote the abstract, came back as a poster. And initially I thought, well, that's no good. But then I actually said, hang on, wait, this is a great way for me to present what I have. And the quality of engagement I got from just engaging with the people in the room who were talking about my poster was fantastic. It really did help. Right. Anybody like to put up a hand to ask us a question or engage or give some feedback on the kind of advice that was given today? Okay, Teresa, we don't have anything specific. There we go. Okay, here's just a slide, whoops, showing our save the date for the conference. It's the 10th to the 12th of September. We're going to be in the Dinokeng area. It's a lovely venue. We had a UN workshop earlier this year at Dinokeng, and we're going back because the service in the venue was just so fantastic. We had such a good experience. We can't wait to be back. We're going to ask, and someone who wasn't on the list as a presenter, but if you've ever done anything with LaRSSA, you will know Teresa is our solid background for us. And we'd like to ask you to please give her a moment as she shares with you why it's important that you give us quality abstracts and let us show you what we do with them. Please, Teresa, over to you.
Hi, everyone. Yeah, let me just get... Right, okay, so what I'm going to show you now is going to try and share with you our conference proceedings book. So what we do is we have gone digital. We do not print proceedings books anymore. And so it's just taking a moment, a bit slow on my side. I want to get to the abstract. So if your abstract is more than 350 words, yeah, not good. Not good for us because we try and make it fit. And then we will, if you don't rewrite, I'm sorry, but then we'll have to cut you off. So what we do is, why are we asking for your headshot? Why are we asking for your bio? Why are we asking for all of these things? It's so we can put it in the proceedings book. So people can see your face. They have your background, where you're from, which company you're representing, because we also want to give you as much exposure as we possibly can. And then there's the abstract, and then once we receive all the presentations, we link it, and people have access to your presentation. I hope you can see that. So yeah, so for you to, I've had examples of people not submitting a headshot, not submitting a bio. They put in or attach any type of file. We need your CV, we need your bio, we need your presentation, because this enables us to put in our CPD applications. If we do not have everything complete, it delays our CPD application and we are not going to submit it otherwise. So yeah, that's it from me. Was there anything else you wanted me to cover, Gwen?
Thanks, Teresa. If you can just go back to the abstract book, we now linked. So a lot of our events historically, we had a book that was presented before the time, and we always had requests, as we've had on the web chat today, for somebody asking for the presentation. So this becomes a really useful guide that you can not only just remember who you wanted to network with, but also you can access the information and really get back to the presentations. So when you are spending the late nights making sure your abstract is correct and that your presentation is looking good, we ask that you remember that this is going to be something that other people are going to be able to research, use. So the effort you're putting in is really going to be something that lasts. Just the one thing that we spoke about yesterday in preparing for the abstract, we've had a very kind offer from one or two of our council members and our long-established LaRSSA members who have a lot of experience. If there are practitioners or students who are not confident in attending or developing their abstracts or their presentations, if you reach out to us, we will do our best to link you to somebody. I know Mariki's offered to accommodate a few people who can really just coach you through the process and help you streamline it and get your presentation up to scratch. It's not something that we are harping on about. It's really about creating a quality experience for everybody in the room. This is your calling card. The way you present and conduct yourself will always be remembered by people. And I want to thank you so much for making the time to invest in learning a little bit more about how to present at a conference. Is there anyone else who would like to make a comment, give a bit of input? Conrad, I don't know if you'd like to say something. Okay, great. I see that we are out there. I do believe we will share the presentation and we will share the slides and the recordings. I see Sue's comment in the chat. She's very glad to see that IAIA is not the only ones with delegates who have broken ears. Please submit what you asked for and a simple brief and bio and a good clear pic. Yep, it's not difficult and it is your calling card. You know, people arrive with business cards or they update their LinkedIn profiles to try and capture everybody's information. But this really is a lasting resource that will help bring your study to the front of mind for years to come. For the students and the others, if you want help, please feel free to reach out and please feel free to send or share any information or request any information that you need about the conference. I know Teresa is always willing to respond, but otherwise I think we can thank you for your time and your effort. And yeah, any feedback in the comments, if not in person, would be much appreciated. Is this something we should do again before next year's conference? What else would you like us to share with you during web chats? We have got an exciting array of topics lined up for the rest of the year that Helene will be able to tell you more about. But yeah, thank you for engaging with LaRSSA and growing with us.
Thanks, Gwen. And just from the LaRSSA Council side, thank you to Anya, Mariki, and Gwen and Helene who put this together in a very short notice. It's always good to help us prepare for conference. So thank you very much for all the efforts, and thank you to everyone who attended.
Thank you, everyone. With that, we can conclude the chat. Much appreciated. And please look out for the recording. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.